Is it possible to say that they could not have an arrest warrant and the subsequent search warrants could be invalid? Let's try to answer this question by looking at the actual Franks versus Delaware motion in Naresh Bhatt's case. We're going to be back in court Friday, September 27th, but I don't think this is the actual Franks hearing. From what I understand, this is the hearing to determine whether or not there will be a Franks hearing. But let's take a look at the motion, which I was able to get my hands on when I was at the courthouse on Monday. So right away, you can see the point of this is to move the court to quash the arrest warrant and any subsequent fruits that are obtained as a result of Mr. Bhatt's arrest. Now, we know that several search warrants were granted prior to Naresh's arrest, and some of those search warrants included the cell phone data and, CCTV at like the Walmart and, things like that. They had that prior to his arrest. We also know that the first search warrant for the home was also given prior to his arrest because the search was conducted and then he was arrested. So all of those early search warrants would seemingly be safe from this motion. However, it does seem that Mr. Ben Alverham, Naresh's lawyer, is going to make an argument that maybe some of the subsequent search warrants should be thrown out because the arrest warrant should be thrown out. Once again, if you go back and watch the video that the comment was referring to, then you can go ahead and see the whole explanation of the Franks versus Delaware thing. So I'm not going to get into that in this one. Let's just get into what's in the actual motion. After he states the purpose of the hearing, he then goes on to give the summary of facts. And he goes back to the initial call for a welfare check, where he says Mr. Bhatt is alleged to have killed his wife and of concealing her body, although he is only currently charged with concealing a dead body. On August 2nd, 2024, the Manassas Park Police did a welfare check at the home of Mamta and Naresh Bhatt when co-workers of Mrs. Bhatt had called saying she had not shown up to work. At 2 prior hearings, the Commonwealth asserted that Mr. Bhatt did not want to file a missing persons report during the August 2nd welfare check. He is so stuck on this fact. The statement was incorrect. Recently disclosed Brady material reveals that Mr. Bhatt was never asked to report her missing. In fact, he informed the officers that Mrs. Bhatt had left and cut off contact, mentioning that this time she might be headed to Texas or New York, which I love. So he's like, listen, he didn't say that he didn't want to report her missing. He just made up a story about her going to New York or Texas. It's different. It's cool. Mr. Bhatt asks for the officer's contact information so he can call the officer later. Yes, that's true. And the officer is like, yeah, call us if she doesn't return. And he sent the text message on August 4th. And then the officer responded, instructing him to contact the police. Then the investigation began on the 5th. Additionally, during the initial contact with police on August 2nd, Mr. Bhatt tells them his wife has a history of leaving, staying at different places, and not communicating with him, and that she has some mental health issues. Now, let's keep in mind that there is no evidence that she has ever left without communicating with him. In fact, I've heard from the friend that she stayed with back in February that she was in constant communication with him. And also this whole mental health issue thing, from as far as we know, that only comes from Naresh. She has never been diagnosed with any mental health issues that we are aware of. He also informs the police that they agreed to separate, were in the process of trying to sell the house, and that an inspector had recently visited to assess the property. Yeah, he does say all that. But then he tells Katie Lusso that, they've been doing well the past couple months, but whatever. Community efforts and support begin to grow as more people learn about Mrs. Bhatt's disappearance, increasing the efforts to find her. Accurate. The Manassas Park Police face growing pressure from the community, the need to give updates and produce results as national and international media attention intensifies. Also accurate. Then on August 22nd, 2024, in response to mounting community pressure and media scrutiny, they decide to take action by seeking an arrest warrant for Naresh Bhatt for concealing a dead body. Yes. But then, this is where he gets to the problem. False statements used to obtain the arrest warrant means there's a lack of probable cause. And again, we've gone over the false statements where Detective Ventura said that there was evidence that the body had been dragged outside of the house, and she later admitted that that evidence did not exist. There's only evidence that she had been dragged from one room to another. So they sought the arrest warrant stating that. Then the magistrate, after receiving the initial criminal complaint, advised Detective Ventura to include details about the body being moved from the house. And then again, there's the letter from her captain saying that that wasn't true. And then this bottom part here is from the letter, which we've already gone over in previous videos. So basically, it's her captain saying that, yeah, she wrote that in a rush. It wasn't accurate, whatever. But then he says, without the false statement, no warrant would have been issued, and there's no probable cause to hold Mr. Bhatt on this charge, and he should be granted bond. It's funny that he ended with him being granted bond because he was already denied bond, and that's how this whole Franks versus Delaware motion got brought up in court, was at his latest bond hearing when the judge told him that this was something that he could have brought up at a preliminary, but he and his client waived his right to the preliminary hearing. So by the time that they got to the bond hearing, which is where we were when he brought this up, that ship had sailed. So he already got shut down on it. He got denied bond. Even with like all of this evidence being brought up at the bond hearing, it was not enough. So I'm curious what the end goal is here, because like I said at the beginning of the video, you know, anything before the arrest warrant certainly isn't going to get thrown out. And ever since he was arrested on August 22nd, the police have even more evidence and more legitimate evidence to establish probable cause. So we'll see how this is going to shake out tomorrow. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a very long hearing, but I will be there and I will let you know what happens. And I will do a live, which you can register for at the link at the bottom of the screen.